Hi everyone, welcome to the channel, Advice to Think Twice. This is Monica and I'm finally doing a walkthrough. I'm not going to call it an unboxing because it's been unboxed for a while, but a walkthrough of the Gregory Scott Tarot deck, a tarot of positive clarity. So this is the deck, obviously. The publisher is Los Hierophant. I love their decks, to be honest. I love their style. So that's the box, you know what that looks like. It comes with a booklet, as Los Hierophant decks do, in, is it what, 4 languages? 5. English, Italian, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. And obviously you have your messages, you know, about the cards, Gregory's perspective on things. You know, like for example, he talks about what is behind a deck, you know, recognizability, if that's a word. Well, clearly it is, but I can't say it. You know, the cards should be easy to recognize. The cards must always carry a positive energy. Okay, then you have your how to use the deck. You have how to read tarot, and that's, I think, you know, his own thoughts and recommendations. So you have to, he says you need a few things: a mental state, a question, and a spread. Talking about, you know, being in the right frame of mind to read, etc. And then it goes into the arcana, the major arcana. You have like a main word for each. So the Fool is innocence, italicized, and then a bit of a description. You know, oblivious to danger, maybe it's distraction, maybe it's an experience, maybe it is just too much of a good nature, but sometimes the world is more dangerous than it seems. So pretty much, you know, his interpretation of the cards. And then it goes into the minor arcana, the different suits, from Ace to King. And you should also have, he has a note on reversals as well. So pretty extensive, even though it's tiny, only a tiny booklet, because this is in all the languages, it's not all English in here. But you do have quite useful messages, right? This is the deck. These are the cards. That's the back of the cards. Really, really pretty. So very nice to work with, right size to hold. Pretty much, you know, a typical tarot deck, maybe a little bit narrower. Tarot deck size, right? Glossy finish, so it's easy to handle, it's easy to shuffle. The cards don't necessarily stick together as they would with different decks. Good card stock, okay? And what else? Let's just go through it, right? Would I recommend this for a beginner? For me personally, if you're a complete beginner, I think it's important to start with the basics, and I think it's important to do it properly and start with the basics, right? And to me, that's the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. That's as close to, you know, the original, before they were playing cards, right? Before, that's not, I don't see that as the original tarot deck. The original tarot deck, I'm seeing it as the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. And that's where you have all the symbols, and when you learn the main meanings of the cards, or the main words to represent each card, etc., you can see those symbols in the tarot cards, right, in that deck. So I think that's a good way to start. You start with that one to start your knowledge of tarot, and then you develop and you add on to that. So as a complete beginner, I always recommend the Rider-Waite Tarot deck for a complete beginner, just because it's easier to learn, I find. This would be the next best thing. Like when you go up a level, because you still see the main symbols in each card, but then you also have the author's interpretation, right? And experts and people who've been reading tarot their whole lives, you can still use this deck and get a lot of useful information and messages from it. So I wouldn't put like, oh, it's only a beginner's deck. I would never be able to say that about this deck, or any deck for that matter, because the more you learn, the more you see in a card, right? So we're going to go through the cards. I have been using the deck, so they're not necessarily in order, but we're going to go through the cards, and I'll show you each card and maybe talk a little bit about if there are cards that stand out or anything like that. So this is the Wheel of Fortune, Eight of Cups, and you can see, you know, in the background what she's walking away from. So the emotional detachment and walking away from things that are over, or memories, or painful memories, whatever the case may be, that is highlighted in the card. The Nine of Pentacles. So we have a man in the Nine of Pentacles instead of a woman in the typical traditional tarot deck. I'll actually put this aside and I'll compare it to the Seven of Pentacles. You'll see why. The Magician, Judgment, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's a beautiful deck. The Four of Pentacles. So, you know, you can see the holding on to things interpretation is literally like scratching that table, doesn't want to go. We could also see as, you know, someone holding on to his money, doesn't want to spend the money, give the money, going with the miser interpretation of the Four of Pentacles. The Ace of Wands, she has wands on her dress. Five of Wands, it's like play fighting, right? They're not really fighting, you can't really be fighting them kids, but the Ace of Pentacles, Two Swords, the Three of Pentacles, and the Three of Pentacles, we just have the student, as it were. We don't have the other people, the mentors, the experts, or, you know, a group of people, but it still retains the meaning. The Seven of Swords, the Hangman, he does highlight angels in a few cards. So we have angels in the Judgment card, we have angels in the Hangman, we have angels in the Wheel of Fortune, the Chariot, the Page of Pentacles. It's interesting how he chooses to portray certain cards. So for the Page of Pentacles, for example, this, to me, the first time I saw the card, it looked like someone stealing some bread, right? Because he's poor. And looking in the interpretation, because I always enjoy, you know, the artist's interpretation, why he chose to portray a card a certain way, Pentacles, Page. And we have Indigence, Material Yearning. So the lack of the simplest things can put us in grave distress. It is only when our basic needs are somewhat fulfilled, that we can look forward with confidence. So that's why he chose to portray the Page of Pentacles like this. He's talking about, you know, this being a page. This is initial startup energy, as it were, childish energy, as it were. It's when we think about the material things, it's what sparks us to come up with a plan to acquire more material things or to fulfill our needs, right? Which is, the plan is the Knight of Pentacles. So I can see his interpretation in the cards. I can see where this image came from. And I find that very interesting. The Five of Cups, the Ace of Cups, the Two of Wands, the Two of Cups, the King of Swords, I find the King of Swords interesting because if you look closely, he's got runes on his hand, and it's almost like he's pouring his knowledge, his wisdom into those books. So again, you can see how you would interpret this as someone who writes or speaks or creates laws and legislature, you know, that kind of energy. An expert, someone who has all the answers. The Four of Cups. We have fairies in the Four of Cups. The Knight of Cups. His portrayal of the Knight of Cups is more on the spiritual side, focusing on, right, of that Knight of Cups. There is an openness to the card. There is a naivete of being open to receive. It's a warm energy. But I see him focusing on more the spiritual side of the Knight of Cups rather than, you know, the romantic offer type energy. The Queen of Wands. It's interesting, he's portrayed the Queen of Wands as an actress, which she can be. Spotlight, center of attention type energy. The Knight of Wands. I don't remember, but I don't think we have horses in the Knights, which is a typical interpretation of the Knights. You see the horse representing movement, representing change, initiative, etc. With the Knights in this deck, so far we haven't seen a horse, right? But the energy, what you read off the card is still, you know, the meaning of that card. So this is taking charge, taking initiative, swift action, right? Because cutting wood, splitting wood, that's swift. Takes strength, takes focus, determination. He's very much goal-oriented. So you can see his interpretation in this card. The Seven of Pentacles. Now, when I first saw the Seven of Pentacles, I thought it was the Nine of Pentacles because it's closer to the traditional interpretation. But this is actually the Seven of Pentacles with the woman in the card, and the Nine of Pentacles is the man. Right? So I found that interesting. The Nine of Swords. Four of Swords. I found the Four of Swords interesting as well because it highlights the temporary energy of the card. The Four of Swords is respite. It's not endless rest. It's not endless pause. It's a temporary energy. The Four of Swords was initially talking about taking a time out from the battle to lick your wounds, hence the, you know, meaning of recovery, get yourself back together, and then you have to go back out there. And this is definitely highlighting that because you can't lie there forever. This pendulum's gonna reach you at some point, right? So I found that interesting. The Page of Wands. The Six of Pentacles. Justice. I found Justice interesting. It almost looks like a crime story, like whodunit, right? Let's see what he's saying, how he's interpreting the Justice card. So Justice, consequences. That's what that is. Every action is connected to other actions in a chain. There are always consequences, and there is justice in this. Of course, if we act with justice, we should never fear justice. So this is talking about consequences. This is talking about, you know, thinking ahead. How are my actions going to affect others? Type energy. And it's quite simply, well, if you drink poison, that's what's going to happen, right? It's very clear. It's very direct. The Queen of Swords, I found this so cool. The Queen of Swords is just tending to her garden. She's all nice and sweet and wearing yellow. There are people hanged, I mean, trigger warning, but there are people hanging right behind her. So that means tread lightly. That means approach her with caution. And that means you better mean what you say and keep your word and have the best of intentions. Otherwise, you're going to end up there. But I found this really nice. The Sun. The Six of Cups. The Seven of Wands. The Seven of Wands is, rather than illustrating someone defending their position, so they're already at the top of the hill and they're defending their position, this is where she wants to conquer. So it's the flip side of that, right? She wants to conquer, she's going for it, she knows what she wants, she's not taking no for an answer. And it can also illustrate boundaries, someone's boundaries. The Nine of Wands. The Nine of Wands is interesting because usually it's someone who's been hurt, bruised, and battered, and he's just about ready to give up, usually a he. And this one, she's pretty much jumping for joy, so this could be the illustration of what happens if you don't give up with the Nine of Wands. Let's see what he's saying about the Nine of Wands. Pentacles, Wands. Victory, overcoming challenges and rivals. So he's focusing on what happens when you don't give up and you stand your ground, stand your position. Overcoming challenges and rivals. Victory is the reward, not just of a single moment, but of a whole journey. It is a feeling and a prize at the same time, changing both the inner and the outer world. The Six of Swords. It's interesting as well. The Lovers, and we have the cherubs in the back. The King of Cups. The Five of Pentacles. You don't have the traditional church scene, but you do very clearly get the feeling of someone feeling left out or someone experiencing lack. The Page of Swords. Curiosity, experimentation, wanting to see what happens, right? Eight of Pentacles. Pretty traditional illustration. The Empress. Now clearly the Empress is the woman, right? Standing out from the rest, being admired, people being amazed by her, drawn to her, men and women, doesn't matter. I like that Empress. The Tower. So you still have, you know, the building, the lightning, people falling out of the tower. The Ten of Pentacles. The Two of Pentacles. It's interesting that he has a similar background to the High Priestess. I find that interesting. Speaking of the High Priestess. So it's almost like if you wanted to interpret, and you actually have the Roman 2, which is the same number for the High Priestess. So it's almost like you can interpret these two linked. Looking at your options, this is younger energy. This is where we go within, and that's where we find the true wisdom. It's very interesting. So the High Priestess, once again, if you haven't seen her. The Five of Swords is very nicely illustrated, clearly illustrates the bully, the one who doesn't care about what other people think or how they hurt other people, someone who can be hurtful just for the fun of it. Okay, very, very clearly illustrated in this image, in this card. The Eight of Wands. The Star. The Star is beautiful. The Emperor. Clearly planning world domination, as the Emperor would. The Hierophant. It's interesting, the Hierophant is a child, but at the same time, if you think about royalty, for example, you have in different, I don't know, periods and centuries and everything, children who had to become king or queen because they were next in line. So it comes with the burden of a title, of, you know, your role, what you're expected to do. So it is clearly illustrated in the card. It's not unnecessary. It's uncommon. It's unusual to see a child as the Hierophant, but it makes sense, right? Heavy as a crown. have used the head that holds a crown, sorry. The Hermit, Ten of Swords, Three of Cups, the Knight of Pentacles. So again, we don't actually have a horse. It's interesting that you have like a demon figure in the background, almost like trying to tempt her. She has one coin. The way I view it, well, I'll read the interpretation in a second. The way I viewed this was, you have the one coin and you're thinking about what I'm going to do with it. You're coming up with a plan to do things properly, and then this can be, you know, the promise or the temptation of an easy win. So in other words, you know, don't think about the plan, just go for it. So it also illustrates the determination of the Knight of Pentacles to do things properly against all odds and temptation. Oh, it actually says temptation. You can't see that. There you go. It says temptation, material action. Everything is in motion as in a continual exchange. However, what drives us should be our own volition and not obsession or greed. Things have meaning and not just value. So you see how he's, you know, portraying the different energies of a card. It's really, really beautiful. It's a really beautiful deck. Very well made, very well thought out. The Seven of Cups, the daydreaming energy being portrayed here. The King of Pentacles, the Queen of Pentacles with the cornucopia there, the Nine of Cups, the World, the Page of Cups, the Devil. Interesting interpretation of the Devil. Interesting portrayal. Glass ceilings, gilded cages, illusion of being trapped, illusion of feeling powerless. It's an illusion because you can easily break free, right? We also have the bottles, so addiction, substance abuse, that kind of energy there as well. The King of Wands, all fun and jovial, now look at me. The Eight of Swords, of, you know, illustrating what can happen when we go down the spiral of feeling stuck and not seeing a way out. It's just more of the same, right? But it is interesting. He portrayed that hand there, just saying, you know, all you have to do is reach out to get yourself out of that situation. And again, we can interpret that in a number of different ways. Temperance is interesting, portraying the different stages, I suppose. You have the crone, you have the new life, the pregnant woman, and then the one in the middle, in between, right? I suppose talking about different stages, teaching us different things, but also a woman can be many things, or a human being can be made up of many different sides of themselves, and it's about finding the balance and knowing when to be which side and when to be which character, right, depending on the situation. It's very nice. The Ten of Cups, we have that angel in the background blessing everything. Three of Wands, talking about movement, travel, arrival. The Death card I found very nice. Usually the Death card is like one of the most feared cards because it's not particularly pretty. It's not supposed to be, you know, it's very serious energy, and it can be difficult to deal with, etc. He chose to focus on what the Death card, the Death energy brings, as opposed to what it takes away. Because at the end of the day, the Death card energy is talking about a clean slate. It's an opportunity to start over. It's an opportunity to start fresh. And that's what that is. It's an empty field, right? It can be anything you want it to be. The Six of Wands. The Knight of Swords. So again, not a horse in sight. but we can clearly see the energy of the Knight of Swords. You know, argumentative, conflict, energy, maybe trying to push someone to do something. The Ace of Swords. The Fool. Ten of Wands. The Queen of Cups. There's a beautiful mermaid. Healing energy. You can see she's healing him. Loving energy. Nurturing. The Four of Wands. The Moon. Strength. So he chose to illustrate strength as taking charge and taking control of our own thoughts. The beast is our inner thoughts. The beast is our inner world. Because we can overthink things, we can overcomplicate things, we can be, you know, too hard on ourselves or a situation. And strength is taking charge of that, not letting our inner demons run with us, right? Or take us in different directions. And again, we have the angel watching over, guiding, protecting. And the Three of Swords, you can see the figure leaving, right, in the background. So we have that sense of hurt, separation, breakup, longing, missing someone. It's not necessarily a breakup illustrated here. It could just be someone has to go away for work, for study, and it's painful because we don't get to see them every day or whatever, right? So there you go. That's the walkthrough. I wanted to take my time, really show you the cards, also bring in his interpretations, because it's a really beautiful deck, very, very versatile, very communicative. You don't have to, with some decks it takes a little bit, I guess, until you get used to each other and you understand each other and how you communicate, at least in my experience, right? With some decks you connect right away, with some decks you kind of have to work at it. This, you can easily connect with this deck. It's very chatty, it's very expressive, and I've had, you know, readings I've done with this deck have been anything from, you know, light and easy, direct messages to going very, very deep, you know, because that's where the deck was trying to take me. So it's a very, very nice deck, very nice to work with, very beautiful, like I say, very chatty, very expressive. So yeah, there you go. That's the deck. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. I love working with it. It has very quickly become my new favorite, and I recommend it to anyone who is looking for a new deck, or anyone who's been thinking about getting it. Get it. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. Like I say, thoroughly recommend it. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know if you work with this deck. What is your experience with it? If you have questions about it, I'll do my best to answer them. If you have other, you know, recommendations, other decks that you love to work with, let me know. If I have it, I can do my own walkthrough and give you my own experience with it. If not, maybe I'll put it on my wish list, because there's several on there. Anyway, the list is ever expanding, ever growing. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know. There's other decks that I've reviewed or did walkthroughs or unboxings, so if you want to check that out, that would be great as well. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.